Hello and welcome to another adventure of Owlbear Soup. For some reason I
Oh,
wanted to call it an adventure in my head as I was talking. Um, I got to off to a little bit of a late start this morning, and YouTube was giving me a little problems going live. I see some settings over there that I need to fix, but that's okay. Uh, I I mean, as weird as it is, I don't actually have any news today. I did
oh,
not gather any news, so uh, that's where we're at. I was mostly focused on thinking about underwater adventures. But
gotcha.
Rich, I feel like you said you did have some news.
I do have some news, and even though I just learned that restream does not start, that R stands for restream and not for rich. I'm gonna put some a link in the chat real quick. Are you ready? Because
Oh,
first up, I know, boom, I'm chat activated today. um, I have a couple Kickstarters
chat-tivated.
that I wanted to take a look at. The first one. Is Slow Quest Stick a Hero? I'm super excited about this one. This is a set. This is a big sticker book, basically, so that you can build your perfect adventurer.
What?
It's great. It comes with like these three really basic pictures and like stick figures, basically. And then there are pages and pages, 5 full sheets of stickers with different clothing, equipment, armor, whatever else you want. And you just like pile them up on top of the thing.
Oh, that's so rad. Is it similar to that? Do you remember that one like 8-bit program that we reviewed a little while ago, where you just kind of had your
Uh-huh.
stick figure and then you put stuff on it too? It's pretty similar to that.
Pretty similar, yeah. It's let's see. This one certainly has limited options because there are the actual sticker pages. I think that one, if you end up purchasing it, you can change the colors of all sorts of things.
Oh,
I'm blanking
nice.
on that name right now. That one's really good. But I love this just because I like sticker books a lot.
That is not something I knew about you. I did not know
Yeah,
you liked sticker books.
it's
Oh
fun.
man.
Sticker books are fun,
Yeah.
and then this one is like the art is really nice. It's just a fun setting. I would absolutely. I am gonna pick this one up. I think just to give me something to do here in quarantine. um, it's a project we love. It's already successful. It's got 10 days left, so absolutely check that one out. Um, and I've got one more
Oh, you got one
because
more too.
I also, like playing games with kids. I hope these links are coming through.
They
This
are.
is Questlings. It's a children's book and role playing game. It seems vaguely similar to the Wordlings um,
Hmm.
miniatures, right? In that RPG that's come out. It's
Yeah.
the goal of this is to come up with cool games that specifically are focused on kids, and so they're looking at a bunch of children's books for younger ages, getting you ready, like getting you into the D&D lifestyle, so you want to be a paladin. Um,
Hmm.
Style books, and then um, there's also the RPG itself, which is meant to be focused on younger players, and it's got a great pair of writers who have written quite a few things, including worked on like Kids and Bikes, um, Betrayal at Mystery Mansion, the Scooby Doo Betrayal game, a
Oh,
couple other
nice.
things. So this looks really cool. I'm really interested in RPGs that are focused on kids and getting that game together between kids and parents. I think it's a
Hmm.
weird balance that you have to get to make sure it's simple enough that kids can play, creative enough that kids and adults are both excited about it, and not too simple that adults are bored. So
Right.
I'm hopeful to check this one out.
All right.
Um, Also highly successful at this point, and looks like it's gonna be delivered sometime middle of next year. So
Sweet.
I got those. I promised some Kickstarters last time, and I took a look, and it looks like a few of them had ended already. So I wanted to hit these two because they both look amazing. They've got great art, stuff I like.
Awesome.
um, I had one more silly thing.
Yeah. Bring it.
We were talking about Tasha's book last time.
Yeah.
Last time. I don't know. Time. Um,
2 times ago, but yeah. Or
two
three
times
times
ago, and
ago. I don't know.
I was made aware that I can now play one of my favorite character archetypes um, in fifth ed D&D, and I'm super excited. I'm gonna just ruin everything right now. Are you ready?
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Bring it.
we are gonna
Bring it. I'm
make
ready to.
today. Bring it. You're ready. The Squirrel Mancer, because
All right. Okay.
right.
All right. Break down to Squirrel Mancer for me.
So in Pathfinder, I played the Squirrel Mancer as the summoner, right? So the summoner,
Mm-hmm.
you create this eidolon, which is like a magical companion. You can make them look kind of however you want to, and they've got some
Mm-hmm.
specific stats. Um, and then casting spells like summon swarm, and I would just summon swarms of little squirrels running around. Um,
Yeah.
and they were basically, I think, reskinned rats. Probably, I don't exactly remember. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think fifth ed has kind of gotten away from that by kind of saying, you got to be really specific about your choices. You have to choose specific animals that already exist, and you could reskin. And sure, that's okay. But Tasha's actually made it a whole lot easier. I gotta dig back into the primal companion for a second. Um, because I'm really excited about this. I'm excited about the ability to summon your primal beast, right? It's friendly to you,
Mm-hmm.
it obeys your commands. You determine the kind of animal the beast is, choosing a kind appropriate from the stat block, and it's got primal markings indicating its mystical origin, right? So whenever you summon it, you have to
Mm-hmm.
summon either one from the land, the sea, or the sky. So here we go. Land is a squirrel.
Yep.
Sky is a flying squirrel. And they're all the same
Uh huh.
squirrel. It's just this one's got wings now.
Yep.
Not those flaps like actual wings.
Mm-hmm.
And then of the sea is a squirrel, but with like a sailor's hat on. So
Oh man.
I think that works. I think that follows all the rules, kind of. Um,
Kind
and
of.
then and then also the new summon spells. We didn't really talk about them a whole lot, but they're very good. Um, I'm a big fan. The summon beast spell, while it's not a swarm or anything, is still the creature resembles an animal of your choice that is native to the chosen environment, and it's also got this bestial spirit thing. So
Oh wow.
uh, you can kind of that just says reskin however you want. And so I think if you are interested in playing a summoner of any kind, the doors are open. You can make
I
the kind
uh
of creatures you want.
I do enjoy playing summoners. I definitely one of those people who lean heavily into the wizard summoning
Mhm.
classes and that type of stuff. I love that. Yeah, no, Squirrel Mancer sounds awful. I hate it.
It's totally awful. I'm very hopeful that it's going to work out. I'm not exactly positive, but Summon Beast is a second level ranger spell. So by the time I get my companion, I'm pretty close to having that spell online as well.
Oh, nice. Um, yeah, that sounds ridiculous.
Perfect.
I've been doing a lot of right. I've been doing a lot of theory building as well lately. Looking at Tasha's, looking at some of the options, and I'm just more and more excited to actually play. Um, so audience, if anyone has a game that's recruiting, hit me up.
Oh yeah,
I could use some I could use some gaming time.
need some gaming time.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh man. But right?
Gosh,
Oh yeah, pirates, right?
I mean,
Oh
absolutely.
man.
Oh, the dream.
All right.
I love these spells. I think they added a lot of creativity into the game that I know my kids are really excited about.
Mhm.
My class, they want this. They want the ability to summon specifically, like, the unicorn they met in an adventure earlier. And the summon celestial spells is pretty powerful, but it gives us that kind of access that we want.
Mhm.
It lets kids kind of decide what thing they're making. If they want a sentient sword, cool, summon that. It'll be like a, I don't know, spirit of this thing, and it's pretty hand wavy, and I like it.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So was that it? Did you hit all your news that you wanted to chat about?
I did. I had two pieces of news, two Kickstarters, and then a ridiculous build that I'm just excited about.
Yeah, no, it is
Squirrel
ridiculous and
times
I love it so
approach.
much. All right. So now let's get into the topic du jour, the topic of the day, and let's talk about a little bit of underwater adventures.
Yes.
So So our theme this month is underwater, specifically underwater, ocean themed overall. We may bleed into some more ocean theme next month,
Mhm.
but this month we're specifically talking about the idea that your players embark on a journey, and that journey somehow ends them up underwater. Um, and and we're gonna kind of chatter back and forth about how we run underwater combat, how some of our tips and tricks, as well as like planning an adventure. We'll probably start writing an adventure for underwater action next week, and then the following 2 weeks, will either be adventure or encounters. Um, but yeah, let's get it going. So when you think about writing an underwater adventure or
Mhm.
sending, let's just even go sending your players underwater. What are some things that you want to make sure that you are prepared with?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. So first of all, I think about my favorite media for underwater, right? Underwater's tough
Hmm.
because it's a world. I know it's a frontier that I'm gonna struggle with. I'm good with beaches, I'm good with lakes. Underwater is a
Hmm.
different story. So I have to dig into my favorite movie, which is of course The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. Um, which basically is everything
Okay.
I want from an underwater adventure. um, I was thinking about this one a lot. I know it's also going to bleed into our other kind of water topics, but
Yeah.
when when they go down, they see mystical, strange things down there. Like, the
Hmm.
creatures are always ridiculous, which is what I want. It's got that sense of kind of wonder. Um, and then also the undersea part is not for this one, the entire adventure. There's a lot of like surface stuff going on. There's a
Hmm.
lot of on the
Yeah.
boat stuff going on. For me, that's the perfect combination of like an underwater campaign, I suppose, larger
Hmm.
adventure. Um,
Yeah.
what about you? Where does your mind go?
This definitely goes to illustrate how we're very different people.
Mhm.
In that my head goes to Aquaman and Abyss.
Okay. Yeah,
I like to think more about the struggle of being a surface creature underwater
I see.
and the things you have to deal with down there and how it's such an alien world. It's a little bit creepy, a little bit
Mhm.
um you could do a survival campaign in like
Oh, yeah.
a underwater like granted I love Sea Lab 2021, like that was a ridiculous cartoon, but like some of the stuff you could even pull from there where it's like, okay, like you're stuck underwater. How's that? How do you interact with the world around you? And what
Right.
are some of the things that you have to worry about that you don't have to worry about on land? And that's for
Mhm.
me, that's the kind of exploring that I like to do when I'm
Right.
thinking about underwater stuff. But I also like and I think we've already established this before. You do like the exploration pillar of D&D quite a bit.
I
So
do.
that yeah, Steve Zissou definitely lines up with where I would expect you to come from.
It is really not the combat pillar. I was just reading back some reviews of that one and remembering like, "Oh, yeah, those fights are all just as absurd as possible."
Yeah.
But the exploration. Have you done underwater homebrew adventures?
I've done a couple underwater homebrew encounters, but not full
Uh-huh.
adventures, right?
Gotcha, gotcha.
Mostly revolving around. I love using Sahagin. I love
Uh-huh.
using a ship where the Sahagin are climbing over the edges and attacking, and then I love using some kind of MacGuffin where the Sahagin grab the MacGuffin and dive down, and now the players have to
Right.
figure out how to,
Mhm.
that kind of situation.
Mhm.
But I haven't done a lot of underwater, so I'm really excited and really interested to kind of dig into this and see where
Okay.
we end up.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
how about you?
so I have. I ran. I think. I mean, it was homebrew for sure, but my main campaign a couple years ago went underwater for I think like 6 sessions. Um,
Oh wow.
so it was pretty big. They were investigating. Oh gosh, how did it go? An artifact was stolen, and someone was taking it underwater to do a thing. And so they
Hmm.
wanted to investigate. They needed to go to the Sea Elf City, and from there gain allies, gain the supplies they would need to go find that artifact and that person who had stolen it. So
Oh wow.
they were exploring a specific rift, and it ended up being a lot of fun because the you get that moment, like you were talking, the moment you dive down is a scary moment. So how do you make that interesting? Um, I had the ship went out and just found this like tall spire in the ocean, like basically just a
Hmm.
needle sticking out. And as they get there, a diving bell rises up from underwater, and they're able to get into it and just basically like elevator down. um, and so they're in this airtight environment as they get down, and it's just the description of the water changing from light to dark, the different kind of creatures
Hmm.
they're seeing as they get to the bottom, and now they're like trapped in this city because they all breathe air, with one exception. And the sea elves are nice. They have some rooms that are set aside with air for visitors, and some that are not, because those are a little bit more private. And if players want to get into those, they have to figure out how to.
Yeah, there's a great
Ooh.
question in a chat from Teos asking. He says he's curious how you keep several sessions in a row underwater, feeling interesting, different, and not forgetting you are underwater.
This is good.
Yeah, yeah. My and we were talking about specifically about D&D, but I've run more. Actually, I've run more Star Wars underwater than I've run D&D
Mm,
underwater, just because of
mhm.
dealing with like Gungans and other underwater races. And I for me, it's that is definitely a challenge, because in most systems, and you will see this if we talk about D&D a little bit specifically, is that most systems being underwater is really feels like a slog.
Oh, it does.
Um, it feels like, um, yeah, it feels like traversing snow too, right? These
Mhm.
are two
I
things
was
that are
going to say the same
typically
thing.
right, typically a slog, because it reduces most characters' movement so much,
Mhm.
and then there's all these additional penalties. So, I think for me, at least in my head, for a successful underwater campaign, you need to kind of set the stage a little bit and develop some way for your players to not be so encumbered by the ocean.
Right?
So is
Um,
that a
mhm.
all ocean races campaign? Is that they have, they each get to borrow a helm of underwater action for a while, something like that. That
Right?
I think that's step A. And
Mhm.
then step B, anytime you're in a very alien world, we talked about this a lot with horror. This is one of those when we were talking about horror, this is one of those areas where you can do really fantastic descriptions, really amazing set pieces, have fun maps that
Yeah.
deal in 3 dimensions. And Tails, you're great at this. We had an underwater spat in the Tomb of Annihilation campaign, and he had all kinds of cool like pieces and relics and strange, and there was elevated combat and that type of stuff.
Mhm.
So I think combat is really easy to keep engaged, keep your players
Yeah.
engaged for, so long as it's not a big combat where you're facing like a brute type character that's just like
Sure.
forever, right? Um, it just takes forever to get through them. But
It does.
yeah, I think I would start with establishing a way for, while you want some of that survival, you want some of that alien atmosphere, you also don't want your players to get bored of being like, okay, well, I know I have a 30-foot move speed, but I can only swim 15 feet around, so
Right.
here
Yeah.
we go.
And so for me it was nice because they start in this city, and there are some swims that they need to do, and they start seeing like the limitations. They can't talk to each other underwater. How are they going to
Hmm.
communicate that they've found something or they need help or anything? What's their bioluminescent things they're going to whatever they're doing. So there was some of that and some basic exploration, but the big deal, what I thought about changing that slog, I don't want them swimming,
Hmm.
walking in the snow, with snowshoes is a half mile an hour. Like, that can't be the whole campaign, right? But it's good to start with.
Hmm.
You find your shelter,
Yeah.
you find your new mode of travel. So for both of those, bring on the pets. Like, let's get in here.
Yeah.
There's a great post. Keith Baker was posting about like their campaign in Rime of the Frost Maiden, naming their wolves for their
Hmm.
sled dogs or whatever. Um, I love that. Just waiting
Yeah.
a little bit so they experience the base level, like, oh, this survival's hard, and then like get them the pets, get them the oxygen tanks that are going to last for
Hmm.
6 hours, and then send them out on an adventure that's 2 hours away. right? So
Yeah.
they know there's something going on. Yeah, I'm not perfect out here, but I'm getting help to be as close to my surface self as possible. Um,
Mhm.
and adding those limitations also means that your characters who focus, like your sea elves, your merfolk, whatever else, like they're going to be a little bit better down here, which is what you
Yeah.
want out of that situation.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it kind of as you were talking, I was thinking about that. Like, if you're working with a society underwater, or like you're interacting with tritons, you're interacting with sea elves, you're interacting with the Sahagin. Maybe they have cool ways of helping you
Hmm.
overcome some of those issues that you normally see with underwater adventure and the slog. And the movement is one that we've been talking about. I love the pet ideas, and I just got an image of like, a stingray that kind of attaches to your backpack,
Hmm.
and then as a bonus action, you can have it move its speed, right? But you still
Yeah.
swim at
Mhm.
half speed, right?
Right.
So you can use your bonus action to move its speed, and its speed, we'll say it's 30 feet underwater or whatever.
Yeah.
Having those kinds of things for your surface dwellers, right? It's like, yes, they can still get around and do things, but now it's gonna take their bonus action to be so efficient. Meanwhile, your sea elf is just your
Right.
water genasi is having no issues at all.
Right. And for us, it was we were going back to the home of one of our sea elf players who was a noble cleric. And so they get back and they go to the stables and they find their prize seahorse, and they're zipping around while everybody else. I think there were a couple manta rays. I think that was the big one. But
Mhm.
gave certain characters this ability to feel awesome. They're at home in their environments, but everybody else gets a cool thing. They get to name those creatures. They're a little bit different. um, Things like that. Like, I love that because it does kind of activate your characters in a different way. They start seeing themselves exploring a new environment instead of being trapped in a bad one. If that makes,
Mhm.
like, anything you can do to push that is going to make your underwater series of adventures a lot better. If it's a one shot, you can feel oppressed the whole time and then know that you're going to be
Oh yeah,
out and back to normal next time. But yeah, if you want it
yeah.
to
If
last a
it's it,
couple times.
yeah, give them tools so it doesn't feel
Mhm.
so awful.
Yeah.
But also like add some restrictions so it feels interesting.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've talked about too in the past is like different planar effects. We could look
Mhm.
at the ocean and think about some of the planar effects we might have. Like, I would not want to restrict Fireball, like take away some of its damage or any of that. I think it's still an effective spell,
Yeah.
but maybe it's very different. It has a very different effect, and maybe you can use that effect for interesting ways.
Mhm.
So maybe a fireball, you cast your fireball, you pick your point, the fireball expands, but it just expands in a bubble of boiling water, right? So,
Exactly.
if
Yeah.
you're in it, it still does the same amount of damage, but then the boiling water rises. So
Mhm.
maybe that does something, or maybe, whatever. It gives you some options to do some really interesting, weird things with spells
Yeah.
too. Um, lightning bolt becomes like a area effect spell, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, things like that. Yeah.
That's what I was just thinking about. I'm pretty sure that I did electricity spells would do an extra bit of damage, but it would do it to
Mhm.
more, like, you couldn't control who else that extra damage would hit. So it wasn't like if I lightning bolt you, I also lightning bolt my cleric, but it was if I lightning bolt you, some of that electricity damage is going to spread,
Yeah, yeah.
which I
And
love.
I could even see like if you're adjacent to the bolt, you have to
Mm.
make a save or something, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Um, I was thinking about this, and for me, the other big thing about this is, exploring the ocean is, even though populated by our sea
mhm,
elves, merfolk, Sahag, everybody else, is kind of a big new frontier, right? So
mhm,
if I wanted to do a longer series, if I wanted to do even an individual session, the only reason I'm going underwater is if I have a purpose, right? I found a map,
mhm.
it's led me to a sunken ship. I'm going right down, coming right back up.
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to have a lot of, like, I don't know where I'm going. I'm exploring these places, right? I'm just wandering around.
Mhm,
This is a specific, like, I go here, maybe I have a couple choices, but I know where I'm going, which is also what Rime of the
mhm.
Frost Maiden early on is about, right? Go into the
Yeah.
different towns, right? I don't want to just wander. And so it's such a great opportunity to think about what kind of cool things could be underwater. Like, what do the Sahagan caves look like? What's going on there?
Mhm.
Um, what is a sea elf city when you can be 3D? Like, what does that look like? I had, like
Yeah.
3 tall towers and people could swim around. There were bridges everywhere. Um, 'Cause it's great. I just wanted skyscrapers that you could just walk across, like, with a sky bridge.
Yeah.
Because underwater, that's no problem. There's just doors everywhere. Um,
Yeah.
my big one, I think you were talking planar effects, is I had, like, the crack at the bottom, like, there was I call it the Starfall Sea, and there was actually, like, something crashed down and built this sea at some point, and that was
Mhm.
still there. So when they get closer to it, there's some odd effects, some weird things, and underwater is perfect for that. It gives you that sense of mystery. I don't know what's down here, without
Mhm.
necessarily like forcing me to be stuck in just the natural world. Like, you can make this
Mhm.
super wild. um
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think looking at underwater adventures, you have to look at it kind of at three different ways, right? There are the above ground adventurers who find a reason to go underwater for
Mhm.
like an event, for one encounter, for one adventure, for one task. Then there's the your a portion of your campaign is going to be dealing with underwater, and
Mhm.
so you want to approach that differently. And then there's of course the entire campaign, or most of the campaign's underwater, and you
Right.
approach that very differently. So some of the things to look at is if it's a just a one adventure, or maybe like one and a half adventures. Yeah, uh, yeah, yeah. Anyway, uh, totally distracted is what I'm saying. So yeah, so if it's a one shot, like single adventure, what you do is you kind of focus on like you can use some of that at the endurance checks, the
Mhm.
um what is it, exhaustion rules. You can
Mhm.
get really nitpicky and think about the survival a little bit more. Meanwhile, if you have a it's going to be, you're going to be there for a chunk of time, you want to give them your players some ability to navigate the underwater world. So like helm of underwater action,
Mhm.
fancy spells, pets, things like that. And then if you're doing a significant portion to most of your campaign underwater, you're going to want all of your players to be adapted for it. That's
I
just
mean, that
right,
is pretty true. Right.
right.
Rime
Well,
of the
for
Frost
the most
Maiden,
part, right?
same way. Yeah. if
Yeah.
if you're dealing with one of your characters who's feeling the exhaustion effects of cold, every single day of the campaign, that campaign's not fun. Which is why I love that they're just, well, if you have cold weather clothing, it doesn't, you never make those checks. You're fine. Right. You could have the intro adventures where you get dropped here and you have to find that clothing for the first place. But as soon as you get it, those rules you can kind of let go and continue on
Hmm.
the story. That doesn't mean there's not going to be a blizzard later, right? There's not going to be the next thing. And
Right.
just like transferring that to underwater, just being, what does the story feel like as I'm trying to become comfortable down here? Okay, now I'm comfortable. Okay, now there's terrible things that are going to happen. um,
Hmm.
right? I want the story where um, a Sahagan comes by invisibly and takes my helm of underwater breathing or whatever, right? And
Hmm.
I need to get that back. And now I care about those rules again for a second. I know what they are. We
Right.
experienced them in the first adventure, but we just having to deal with them for a little while. um,
Right.
how do I swim if my pets are dominated by this underwater druid who just steals them away? Um,
Right.
you know the the problems of underwater get to be features of the story instead of the slog of the story. That's skipping that
Yeah.
is important.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely important to kind of look at. And let's look at some of the disadvantages while we're digging into this. So one of the things is when making a melee weapon attack, a creature that doesn't have a swimming speed has disadvantage on the attack rolls unless the weapon is a dagger, a javelin, a short sword, a spear, or a trident.
Right.
So in those, for the most part, aren't weapons you see a lot of use aside from the dagger and maybe the short sword.
Right.
So you're already hitting this wall, and you're hitting these restrictions. Um, and then also, range attacks automatically miss if the target is beyond the weapon's normal range.
Mhm.
As well as the attack roll has disadvantage unless the weapon is a crossbow, a net, or a weapon that is thrown like a javelin, so a spear, a trident, or a dart.
Right.
Um, yeah, and then creatures and objects fully immersed in water have resistance to fire damage.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I was saying, like, hey, if one of my players are going to throw a fireball, maybe it does different kind of damage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so those are those are that's underwater combat. That's
Mhm.
things to think about when you're underwater.
And I like those rules because they make sense, right? The things that we expect are going to
Hmm.
do well are piercing weapons or thrown weapons, things that are going to have some serious momentum. I can even picture that. I pull my bow back, I fire, and the arrow just slows down. It just doesn't have the mass to keep it going. And we'll let crossbows slide because it's mechanical. I don't know, because it feels more. I don't know. Like a spear gun. There we go. Than anything
Yeah,
else. Things we
yeah,
expect are going to work well underwater. Um,
absolutely.
so again, good opportunities for your characters to get used to a different environment. Just say the weapons you're used to
Hmm.
don't work. Your big slash and greatsword, cool. Here's a try.
Sure.
Why don't you try this out for a little
Yep.
while? Give them a chance to kind of reinvent themselves for a day. That's another really good thing about the underwater one shot is your fighters can change a little bit for a day and decide if they're going to get back to normal or if they are going to, you know, take this with
Hmm.
them when they get back to the surface. It's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, and some other rules to worry about, right? Of course, is unless aided by magic, characters can't swim for a full 8 hours per day. So, you know, you're gonna have to, you don't have a swimming speed, so you're gonna have to take that into consideration. And then after each hour of swimming, the character must succeed on a DC 10 con saving throw or gain a level of exhaustion. And this is where the slog really starts to show itself.
Mhm.
So,
Right. And it's,
let's see here.
you know,
Oh, go ahead.
oh, the same thing. Another big one, and this shows up in any hostile environment, right?
Hmm.
Visibility is a thing you've got to
Yep.
worry about for sure because it doesn't matter if it's daylight; it's dark down there. So if you are way down deep, you better have a light source with you, and that's all there is to it. Um,
Yeah, there's a nice little chart in the DMG, I believe, about this, where it talks about in clear water with bright light, you have a 60 foot, you can see 60
mhm,
feet, and then clear water, dim light, 30 feet, murky water, no light, 10 feet. So that's something
right.
to consider.
Yeah, and if you're
Uh,
going deep underwater, I
mm-hmm.
mean, there's no light, so murky water.
Yeah,
You can kind of hold to that. Your light source is just going to illuminate the 10 feet around you or so. It's very difficult.
yeah. Yeah, and the other thing to consider too is there are things to take into consideration when you're swimming deep. So if you swim deep into the water, it's kind of like traveling to high altitudes. So for creatures without swimming speed, each hour spent at a depth greater than 100 feet counts as 2 hours for the purposes of determining exhaustion.
Mhm.
Swimming for an hour at a depth of greater than 200 feet counts as 4 hours. So you start to kind of rank. You're increasing your con saves that you're having to make every time, and
Yeah.
you're getting worn down because you're so deep and it's so cold, and the
Mhm.
water, the pressure is just pushing down on you.
Right.
So
This is such a perfect moment to have a climactic battle down, something. You're here for a reason. I wouldn't want to just push people just because I don't know, we're looking for something, right? What's the goal of this is a big deal. Your players should know that goal so that they can decide, they can know this entire time it's this sacrifice is worth it. I'm gonna get down here, and they can start thinking about the possibilities. What if one person does start failing those saves? Because that's gonna rapidly um
mm-hmm.
I can't even. Next hour goes by, I make four more checks or whatever. It sounds like a
Yeah,
nightmare.
sure, it's only DC 10, but
Yeah.
still you have to roll that a lot.
Now you've got disadvantage. Here we
Right.
go. Yeah. I do think it's fun. I love those ideas. I'm a big fan of characters having to make, forcing themselves to do this thing they don't want to do because there is a reward that is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a good moment for that. Like, this is a great point for your campaign to have a major plot device down here or something that they need to activate the rest of your plot, which is why I like it.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it, but I thought there was more underwater combat rules in 5e. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought once you take damage, you had to make that endurance Constitution check as well. But that could be just me thinking about older editions.
It could
It
be. I
definitely
don't.
sounds like it. Definitely sounds like an older edition. thing to me. Let's see here.
Now,
A character can hold his breath underwater a number of times equal to 1 plus his gone mod. Oh, there we go. Fighting underwater does not say receiving hits or moving violently underwater shortens this time. So yeah. I think you're good to go as far as that goes. If you get
yeah,
hit, I don't think that's a huge deal. But you do have to think about the underwater movement being half speed. Yeah, in all the other things kind of take consideration, especially if you're exhausted, because when you're exhausted, you're already moving at half speed.
yeah.
Is it 1 level of exhaustion your half speed, or is that 2? I don't know. It starts to build very rapidly. Once you get 1
It
level of
does.
exhaustion, it becomes immensely easier to get a second level of exhaustion. Tail says in the chat he thinks it was a 4E thing. So yeah, that could be a 4E thing that I'm just getting mixed up
Mhm.
because so many additions in my brain.
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand, and it would be a really cool effect to have like during a specific combat. That's a pretty terrible disadvantage.
Yeah.
But this is a great time to know that during your encounter, everyone is going to be struggling. Drop the CR by like half or something. I don't exactly know.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they get hit in this specific scene, they're at the edge of their resources. You could add that bit in there for an extra bit of total fear. Um, as they're
Yeah.
fighting, I don't know, just two deep sharks or something.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You could even like you could give special Sahagin like special powers. I use Sahagin because I really like the imagery of Sahagin underwater, right?
Me too.
Like you could have a special like wizard spell that they have or something where it's take breath away or something. You have to make a DC something
Mhm.
save, or you have to make this endurance check, right? Just out
Yeah.
of nowhere. Um, yeah, and that's kind of fun thing you can do with warlocks too, right? Against your party, is if you tied that all together, you could make them have negative or have to roll a disadvantage on their con saves through warlocks. What is that power? Pack boon thing. Curse when they curse them. Yeah.
Hex. There we go.
Hex, hex,
Yeah.
hex. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could even see a house rule like if you get crit while underwater, like you might have to make a DC 10
Sure.
exhaustion check, but that I think that's better for like a one shot, but I don't think that's good
Absolutely.
for like
Absolutely.
if you're doing like 3 or 4 sessions, or if like a large chunk of your campaign is going to be underwater. Like that's not one you want to add. You want to add that whenever it's just like, oh, they're only going to be down there for one session. Let's make
Mhm.
it real hard on them because they're
Exactly.
ill prepared for this. Yeah.
um, yeah. Oh gosh, I like that. The very deep is a really interesting spot. Um,
Hmm.
But I ended my series of adventures coming back to the Sea Elf City because I wanted them to feel a little bit familiar. So they're back kind of in a place
Hmm.
they've been before. They know how it works. And I just attacked the city with like a Sahagan horde. So they were specifically asked to, we were watching Aquaman at the time. I'm not gonna lie. To activate this shield that they had. They needed to get to like the 3 tops of these towers and activate a machine or something like that. I'm blanking right now. Just an arcane engine that would like protect the city from everything else. And it was great. Oh my gosh, I loved it. Like talking about these huge, like giant crabs launching at high speeds, busting through some of the walls, knocking, things flying everywhere. Get the creatures flying all over the place. You get that Aquaman battle scene, and the players have something to do. They need to get to the tops of these towers and protect
Hmm.
these 3 engines or activate them. It's been a while, and they loved it because there were opportunities during that for them to be with their pets. Flying up, they could get into the buildings. I had a couple like minion fights in the sections of the city that had air, so they could do their normal stuff and they felt good. They got to the tower top. Okay, now we're underwater again. So constantly changing what they were capable of was a great like finale to that series of investigations where their abilities kept kind of shifting from adventure to adventure, and now we're just doing it all at once. And I had a lot of fun with it. They were able to save it, of course. Not of course. It was. I think it was pretty close.
It was pretty touch and go here and there.
I think I blew up one of the towers. Um,
Yes.
I can't remember, but they were all kind of on timers and they needed to get certain places at certain speeds. Um, there were some consequences, but also big rewards at the end because you get to save a civilization and then leave.
Yeah.
So
Oh, okay, so let's kind of do some prep for next week a little bit, right? So let's talk about why would you send your players underwater? Let's do the who, what, when, where, whys, right?
sure.
So who will the players meet underwater? Like what kind of NPCs could you expect? What kind of enemies?
Hmm.
Uh, who might send them underwater? That type of stuff. Like, so if you're
Yeah.
thinking about like who are some of those people? You've already talked about sea elves. Of course, sea elves, right? You're going to
Mhm.
find civilizations of sea elves down there. We've talked a lot about Sahagin. I've mentioned Tritons a few times. Like what else? Where else might we see? What else might we see down there?
That's a good question. Taking a look at Xanathars, where they have like random encounters, right? What kind of things are
Oh
on
yeah.
here? Let's see. Of course, Sahagin and Merfolk. They've got reef sharks. Do 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 do. A thing I love about Rime of the Frost Maiden is Mother Tusk. I think it is the awakened walrus,
Oh
who is at
yeah.
least in some of like the intro adventures during D&D Live. Um,
Oh
but
nice.
there's always room for creatures, awakened
Mm-hmm.
animals in a place like this. Um, Giant seahorses. Not a ton in here. I think this is really focusing. Oh, Marrow. Good, such a good enemy. Um,
So good.
Nothing great in there that I'm seeing. I do like sea elves a lot. I just because they are the in between in a lot of ways for a lot of characters. They feel comfortable talking
Mm-hmm.
to elves. They feel like they should be able to talk to sea elves as well, even though they have totally different lifestyles and atmospheres and potentially deities, whatever else. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm a fan of that one. Um, what underwater races do we have that have natural water
Let's
breathing?
see. I mean, there's Tritons. There's Merfolk, of course. You mentioned those. There's the Sea Elves. We mentioned those.
Some water genasi,
Water Genasi. Uh,
tritons.
i Tritons. Different elementals could be seen down there that you
Hmm.
might have some kind of interaction with, depending on the setting. You could have interactions with Sohagen. Not all of them necessarily need to be trying to kill you. Marids,
Hmm.
those would be down there as well. Actually, having a interaction with a Marid might be a ton of fun. Actually,
Oh yeah.
I, d- I do like that. Like dealing with some underwater gen. That could be
Mhm.
a ton of fun in there.
Yeah. I mean, not even can't leave out our turtle friends.
Oh
You
yeah,
should have a
turtles.
turtle NPC in your underwater campaign.
Yeah, just one. Just he's just wandering,
Just
or
one.
she's just wandering around, and they bump into him like for no
Choose your
reason.
choose
I love it.
choose your favorite Renaissance artist, and
Yep.
uh,
Oh,
yeah, I'm trying to think. Turtle Town would be fun for sure. Seals might be too close. Tritons or Merfolk, vaguely similar, would give us that underwater that we want. Um,
yeah,
I like both of those. I really like the helpful NPC in the environment already. Like
yeah,
if just someone tells me I'm very helpful, I need you to go that way and then dive down. Good luck, bye. That's
right.
not like environmentally friendly, which is what I kind of need in this scenario. I need someone to have the knowledge base to tell me how I'm going to survive here.
Yeah, definitely. Like I feel like having a if it's an adventure, maybe you have your patron is up top on the surface,
Mhm.
but then your resources are all below the surface.
Right.
Yeah, no, I like that. So okay, so
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 step
we
one
got
is
some who's.
getting there. Uh-huh.
Yeah, we got some who's. So how about some what's or what else would we see down there? What else? What would they be going there for? Why would they be going down there for? There's two of them,
Mm,
right? What and why?
great. Now,
So
yeah.
yeah. I mean, my first thought we kind of talked about a little bit is an underwater civilization is in trouble.
Mhm.
And they reached out to the surface for some reason, right? That's one we kind of have been dancing around a little bit. But what are some other ideas you have?
Oh, interesting. I'm just thinking about that one. Like, what resources does the surface have? Maybe your party has a cleric of light or something, and that's not
Yeah.
something they have down kind of at the bottom. So they have a magic item they need you to infuse. So you need to get down there with your light cleric, use some channel divinity to power this thing up. Maybe could do
Yeah.
something like that. Something special that you have for sure. Um,
Hmm.
could be fun.
Yeah, or
There,
it
there
could be
could
you
oh,
meet
sorry.
someone on the surface and they have a MacGuffin that you need, that the underwater society needs,
Right.
and you have to deliver it, right?
Mhm. So something like that, something for to help save this civilization, and they need you not only to get down there with it, stage one, but then to
Hmm.
do something with it. Probably go somewhere with it. Um,
Yeah.
I love the idea that they are going to, give you a guide. Maybe a struggle in these situations is always like, why doesn't the whole town go with you? Don't they have like a military? Send 20 people.
Yeah.
So we need a reason why you only get a guide or a sparse amount of resources. Maybe they are in battle like right now with
Hmm.
the hordes, the enemy hordes, whatever it is, and so their troops are limited.
Yeah. I mean, and then there's also simple things like a milk run where, someone on
Sure.
surface says, "Hey, I need you to go collect this thing." And here's the map, and you have to dive down there, right? And you don't know that there's an underwater civilization, and there may not be. You may not need one for this kind of
True.
adventure where you're just diving down there and dealing with normal denizens of the underwater, so sharks and giant squid and
Mhm.
krakens and and those types of things.
And I
Um,
love that for the sunken ship, right?
exactly.
Classic classic Witcher stuff. Witcher 3 was always like, hey, here's a map, go underwater, find the thing.
Oh, bad. Yeah, so okay, so now we have a couple ideas of why players might be going down there.
Yeah.
Let's see, we did who, what, when.
'Cause
Oh yeah, that's something to think about too, right? When.
when because we're writing a one shot for this, so we can just do the simple version. Not simple, but we don't need to worry about the long term
Yeah,
improving your underwater nature. Yeah. Okay. Because
right,
yeah, in that case, when could be terrifying, right? When could make the
right.
boat ride on the way there pretty precarious.
Well, and that's even another hook to the adventure too, right? You could easily be in a ship, and the wind is during typhoon season, and your boat gets capsized, and down you go, right? Um, so the wind could also be the why,
Mhm.
and,
That's
and
true.
that's something to consider too, right? Is like depending on what time of year or what's going on in the weather, the ocean's very different.
That is true. I was just thinking about the ship being attacked, of course, like as an intro
Hmm.
by a group of Sahagan, sure, easy.
Yeah.
Um, and giant crabs, they got like big pinchers. You could have them pretty easily like cut through the bottom, get into the ship's
Oh
hold,
yeah.
grab a couple things, and dive back underwater. Like, sure, you can repair the ship, you're not sinking, but like, we need that thing.
Wow. What was that thing that
Go
they
get
took?
it.
Oh man, go get
Yeah, go get it.
it.
There's a lot of options for like a one shot where you just have to go. You're the
Yeah.
adventurers.
Yeah, you're the adventurers. It's your job. Get your booty
We've
out
got
there.
pikes. Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh.
Let's see here, and and then we got the who, what, when, where, why now.
Mhm.
Uh, oh, we didn't talk about why. Well, we kind of talked about why, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons why. We talked about why. Uh, so rewards. So rewards for underwater adventures is also something that you could be could be very funny. It could be very interesting. You could come up with very sea themed um, rewards, like
Sure.
a bag of holding, but it looks like a giant conch, right? And you just kind of shake it. The stuff you put in there
That stuff
falls
pours
out,
out.
right? Yeah, I mean, something like that, right? It's you just think about what you want out of it, and you just shake it, and then it falls out into your hand, right? It's
Yeah,
which is just like a bag of holding, but it's just a weird conch that you have on your hip now.
absolutely. Um, and there's also plenty of room, of course, for for people who have gathered the treasure that they've discovered on the bottom, right? Stuff that
Oh
fell
yeah.
down from the surface, treasures from lost heroes, things like that. This is a great
Hmm.
way to, raid a tomb without having a tomb at all. It's just, these creatures have gathered all the swords that fell down from shipwrecked
Yeah.
boats, and now they're yours.
Yeah. There's
Maybe they
and
need to
that
be
that
returned.
leads.
Maybe there's history. Yeah.
Yeah, that leads to a lot of seeds to other potential adventures too, right? Oh, we found this sword that looks like it really needs to get back to its owner or something like that, right? Or
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
or you find this mystic tome down there, that somehow survived the depths. It's yeah,
Right.
a lot of interesting things could happen because of delving into the depths.
Yes, absolutely. This is, if you're finding heroes equipment, this is a great place to find those like growing weapons that level up with
Mm,
you, things like that.
yeah.
You find them, you bring them up. That hero is long dead. Now you have like a different legacy going. There's a lot of cool things you can do with underwater, which you could do in a lot of locations, but I love them for underwater.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, you could just find all kinds of interesting apparatus of Kawash?
Polish, yeah.
Qualish. Yeah, like you could find that under there. It's this weird gnomish tank contraption that has like claws and it kind of looks like a
Mhm,
crab, right? Um it looks like an oil barrel with like crab claws and a
mhm.
porthole.
Oh my gosh. One of my students in an adventure this week wandered off from the group for a little while. And I was like, oh,
Oh.
okay. Well, sure. Just, and he's like, I'm off to find something. Just do your thing. And then, like 30 minutes later, it's like, all right. So my character's been searching and has found for my pet an apparatus of Qualish. And I was like, hold on. That's not, that's not how that works. I have to tell you what items you get, not. Oh, okay. Um, so I think that what we're gonna do is it's for his pet specifically. So it's gonna be like a little wooden version that like
Uh-huh.
isn't super strong, but it's like a prototype. Just so that pet can basically be driving around this little craft that goes like 15 feet around and does a point of damage or something.
Oh my god, that is amazing.
He was so excited.
Oh.
Um, that kid is sitting there with the book or the deck of magic items, that huge product that came
Uh-huh.
out, and it's just like flipping through them, like I want this. It's great.
Oh man.
So that
That's
one came
that's
up.
that's the kind of I was gonna say that's the kind of enthusiasm you need to nurture.
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh man. All right.
Ah,
Well,
underwater, so good. There's so
underwater.
many fun options.
Yeah, there is. I'm actually really excited to start digging into the adventure next week
Mhm.
and talking more about underwater adventures and what we can do. I have a character in my home game who's a Triton, and so I may borrow some of these ideas for a little one-off with him, or not one-off with
Good.
it, but like a excursion.
Yeah. Right. So it's very good.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, yeah, one of my future, I think next season is going to be a ship and then an underwater. So
Hmm.
I also need to borrow some things. We're working out our own campaigns here, live on
Yep.
Twitch.
Yep. Twitch and YouTube.
Darn right.
All right. Well, um, I think that should wrap up our discussion this week. Is there anything that you want folks to check out or pay attention to until next week?
I don't think I have anything in particular, honestly. No, I'm just working on writing some things. You should watch The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou if you and Aquaman. I don't know. Watch them all.
Yeah, watch
Um,
them all. Underwater Sea Lab 2021.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I was trying to think of other ones, but I don't want to watch Jaws. So there we go.
All right. Well, we are here on Twitch and YouTube every Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Go till about noon. You can find these videos later on YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe and all that stuff. And we pay attention to the social medias. We'll probably be back tomorrow night at 6:30, continuing our deep dive into feats, unless something happens, in which case that's kind of our optional show. So just pay attention to social medias.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks Teos for hanging out, and we'll talk to you again next time.